Hey everyone, welcome back to the Side Voices Bullying podcast. This is part two from the last episode. We're still here with Nirali and we're back.
What makes it more devastating for me as a queer person, not for me, but like me as who understands the queer community and like the queer journey, is the fact that these people who are queer in the Psy community or Psy organization, they still have to go home and talk to their parents. And there's no community to support them because the Psy Center it's not upholding the average member in a way that is actually productive to them. Like we're just doing budgeons every damn day. Like Swami's birthday, let's do a budget. Ishram birthday, let's do a budget. Graduation, let's do a budget. What is that doing? That I mean, great, you can sing, amazing, but like if a 13-year-old has to go home from SSC and then tell their mom I'm trans, like what is the Psy Center doing for you at that point? Nothing. It's just making you more scared. Yeah,
You do
I
you know
spoke for
what?
too long.
No, you didn't. You didn't. But
Yeah.
we just need one person. Literally, we just need one person who is. Do you know what? They don't even need to be in a leadership position. I've always found that when you're not in a leadership position, like you are more likely to make change than if you are in leadership than if you are in leadership position because there are too many things that are fighting against you when you are in leadership position. Whereas when you're not, you can you're not accountable to anybody apart from yourself and to Swami. And so you can build that community, right? Like you can do that. I don't see any reason why. Like we could do like a UK, US like queer online like meet up to talk about this type of stuff. And if it's consistent, there's no reason why we can't say, we're going to create various support groups, for example, and be like, okay, we're going to do a queer link up support group. We're going to do trans link up support group. Like, there's no reason why we can't do that as individuals and say, okay, tell me what's the turmoil going on inside, because we know what happens is you get that turmoil inside that's happening and you've got no way to you can't turn to anybody. You don't know who you can talk to. You're like, can I talk to my siblings? Can I not talk to my siblings? What if this? What if that? You've got all these what ifs in your brain, and there isn't a safe space for you to let it out. So I know you guys do these like um online stuff, don't you? You guys do online meetups and stuff
Yeah, we
like
have these
that.
online meetups. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can do that consistently, like let's just build it. Let's build it. Let's build it. If it's not there, we can't get it in the infrastructure. If we can build it independently, you can't ignore it. Because the point is we're trying to create a support system for those individuals that can't find it within the center. But if they recognize that these are people within the center, who are LGBTQ, who are willing to provide support, even if it's not linked to the center, then at least it makes them feel safe that when they do go to the center and they see your face, that they know that they got support. Do you know what I mean? So I
Definitely.
don't see why not. Why not? We can do that. I have my networks. We can
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll coordinate for our next meetup. We can coordinate.
honestly, I don't see why not, because there are plenty of young adults in the UK who I know would be more than happy to have a chat about their experiences and just how to navigate everything. And I think sometimes just having that open conversation where you can just be like, oh God, I can breathe and actually let it out is so, so important. So important just to have that. Failing that will take everybody to a women's football match.
Yeah, and just to plug is that we Side Voices Belonging has meetups and you can find them on our website, Instagram, WhatsApp group, etc. So contact us if you're interested. Yes.
So no, definitely. I think that sounds good, and I've already got a couple of YAs in mind, um, who I think would be quite good for this community as well, and just having a chat and stuff because it is really difficult. It is really difficult, and I do wish it was because do you know what the other thing is, right? You grow up like when you go to Balvikas, yeah. The one thing, the number one thing that they tell you, and obviously we've got the segregation, right? The number one thing they tell you is that the boys are your brothers and the girls are your sisters. And growing up and then slowly realizing what you like and what you don't like, that can become a very confusing message, you know? And like it's so funny. What I was talking to someone, and they said to me, like to one of their siblings, who's LGBTQ. They said that they said to their sibling, "Oh, why didn't you do what we all did and just do it behind our parents' back?" and I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing. So this individual was a proper like just stuck to everything that Swami said, like took everything so strongly, that they just didn't know how to navigate it. They were just stuck in this box, and it made it very difficult for them as they got older to sort of navigate that. And the one thing they said, why didn't you do what everybody else did, which was just go behind the backs. And I was like, okay, that's not how it works. But okay.
Yeah. That's
So
definitely a common thing I've seen, at least, for like it's hard. So I guess like moving on to the next section, which is, so our question for you is, how have your experiences evolved with like talking about the LGBTQ community? And does it like feel more productive? Do you feel as invested as like you've been in these situations like over and over? And it sounds like you've been in many of these situations where you're discussing LGBTQ community with various groups of people.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think the problem with me is that wherever I see an injustice, I can't take it. So whether it's somebody who has a disability or something like that, and I think so the center is one place where I will do a lot of work to support young adults, from the LGBTQ community. But I feel like as if like going into, I mean, this is a tangent a little bit, but going into women's football has really opened my eyes to everything. But what women's football has created is actually a safe home for LGBTQ communities. Like that's what it's done. It's a really safe space. And and the thing is, right, it's even safer for people from like the side community because the two worlds don't overlap. The two worlds do not overlap, which means that a place where you can be yourself is actually somewhere like women's football, for example, because they talk about these things very openly. They do a lot of queer link ups. They do a lot of forums where you can talk about how are we making environments and communities safer for people from LGBTQ? How are we making communities and spaces safer for women? How are we evolving stadiums, for example, for women? Do we have like a breastfeeding room, for example? Have we got more women's toilets, for example? Have we got free sanitary products, for example? So the way in which I think, like, I feel like as if every community was to tap into women's football, then you can actually see how women's football is trying to be a more inclusive space for everybody. Like they even talk about how are we making stadiums more accessible for people in wheelchairs? How are we making football more accessible for people who are deaf or blind? Like, how can we make sure that it is still accessible for people? Women's football is evolving in all of those areas, and the representation that they have there is amazing. The representation they don't have is actually people from different ethnic diverse backgrounds. That's what they don't have within women's football. And I know it's a problem. I was talking to somebody from, was it Boston Legacy? Boston Legacy. They're the new NWSL team in America. And they were saying how actually representation from South Asian communities is just not there. It's not there. Um, but again, like I say, the places where um, people who are LGBTQ they can feel safe is actually a space like women's football, and we shouldn't have a fear of tapping into that. Although it feels like two very separate communities, side community and football community, they can they do see eye to eye. There is a way to kind of um there is a kind of way to make that happen, if I'm being honest with you. So um I think that's how it sort of evolved. I am seeing things a lot more broadly. I'm having more conversations with people who are from an LGBTQ background. Just talking about their coming out story. Like, what was your coming out story? How did your parents, take the news? You know, and whether they come from a religious background, because I think that's also really important. So I have a friend now. She is traditionally from a Catholic background, and so the very, very strict Catholic background. So when she came out to her mom was like, "We're Catholic. We don't do things like that. I don't accept it. I don't accept you." It's as simple as that. To this day, her relationship with her mother is still strained. However, she will still go home for Christmas. She will still like see them on occasion and things like that. She doesn't expect acceptance, because what she's done is she's learned to love herself first beyond what her parents have said. Now, your parents are meant to love you unconditionally. That's not something that she's experienced. And we have to be able to have those sorts of conversations with people as well, so that we know the types of reactions that you might get when you do come out to your parents. And it might even be harder if they're a single parent, or if they're a father, or if they're a mother. It depends how religious they are, for example. We have to take all of those things into account. There was a piece of work I was doing with Birmingham City Football Club, which never came to fruition for various reasons. But we were looking at how are we going to have how do we increase South Asian representation in football, and also tackle the fact that we're not very good as South Asians about having conversations about LGBTQ communities. So we decided to combine the two together and said, well, if we did an activation where you have like a penalty shootout, and let's just talk about inclusion. Let's do it very softly first. Let's just talk about inclusion and acceptance of what that actually looks like. And first, what it looks like in the South Asian community, but then also what it looks like in its entirety, which includes LGBTQ, and seeing what the attitudes are of parents as well as the children who are interested in football, right? That way, we know what the environment is and how safe the kids can feel, knowing what their parents might feel about, LGBTQ inclusion and stuff like that. That gives them an inkling, and it provides them with a route to say, oh, they're feeling like this right now. How do I drip feed information so they feel more comfortable about LGBTQ? Right? So that's a piece of work that we were going to work on, but unfortunately we weren't able to, like I said, for various reasons, which has got nothing to do with the community or LGBTQ. But it's having those more open conversations, and actually finding organizations like, if you were to have a look, are there any South Asian organizations out there who provide any written material in our various South Asian languages which explain to parents about what do these LGBTQ terms actually mean? There isn't. There isn't. Can you believe that there isn't? So if anybody from the Gujarati community was going to explain, oh, I'm gay, and how are they going to explain it? There is a Bollywood movie called, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. But
Which one? I know all of them.
you know what it is? It's the one with Anil Kapoor and Sonam Kapoor, and Sonam Kapoor is
Oh,
like
this is Ek
gay.
Ladki.
That's it. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah. That's the only thing we could show parents. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's the only thing. Like, is that what we're supposed to do? Um, so it's again having those broader conversation thinking, how do we drip feed information so they're more comfortable with it? Like, I have the funniest story when I was watching Grey's Anatomy with my mom, yeah, and on the screen there was two girls and they were kissing on the screen. I can't remember who it was, whichever couple. There was a few of them, right? And my mom's like, they're not friends. I'm like, no, mom. They aren't friends. They aren't friends, Mom. They are definitely in a relationship. And she's like, how does that work? And then we have that conversation. We had the conversation. I was like, well, Mom, they are two girls and they like each other. They're in a relationship. She's like, yeah, but like, who's the husband? I was like, Mom, they're both wives. Like, if they're married, then they're both wives, kind of thing. She's like, I know, I didn't grow up with this. I don't like this is new to me. I've never seen it before. But it's the same thing with me. Like I went to university in Brighton. Brighton is renowned as one of like, well, back then it was renowned as like gay central, right, of the UK. Like that's where. And I remember like walking down the street and for the first time seeing two gay people holding hands. I was like, oh my God, they're holding hands. And like it wasn't like, oh my God, shock horror. It was like, oh my God, that's actually so sweet. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they're open about it kind of thing. I was like, because I've never seen it like live. So, but that it's just like, oh, it's so nice that they can love who they want to love, so I think that's how it sort of expanded. Like I've done a lot of research about whether any of this stuff there is no support system for our parents, none. There's no support system for them to even understand what any of these terms mean. We haven't got anything in the languages they speak. There is no an instructional video about how you should respond to your child who's just come out to you. There's nothing like that about how can you actually go through your thoughts, because they don't have a filter. They will just say what they think. We don't have it.
Yeah, definitely. I have two thoughts on this. One, hopefully, there are two organizations I can think of that do somewhat related things. I know there's an organization in the US called They See Rainbow Parents. They have like a support group for parents that meets, I think, every month. There are a few there's also a support group for queer people that meets every month. And there's some other support groups. And then there's another group. I don't know as much about what they do, but it's called the Matt and Nas Foundation in the UK.
Yes.
And they do, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they do like support for parents, like of all religious parents of queer people, right?
I've
Is
looked
that,
at it. There
yeah, I don't
wasn't
know what they do.
anything. Yeah, they were. It was. They do more work around supporting individuals
Hmm.
who have come out to their parents, and their parents have essentially like disowned them. When I last looked, and this might be a new development that you're saying, I didn't see anything about parental support. So maybe I have to have another look again, because like when I'm looking in that and I'm saying, well, is there anything that is specific to South Asian communities and about um, things in their own language? I couldn't see anything in their own language. There in the UK. There is this um, uh, queer Muslim like organization, which my friend who is gay but not Muslim is actually helping them with like their social media and stuff like that. And they want to do something like this to support like parents and like in their own language, because when it's not in their own language, it's so much more difficult for them to to process what's being said.
Yeah, I've not seen any content in other languages. Not that I've tried to look for like content in various Indian languages, but that is not something that I've seen. And I definitely see the need for that, like in terms of
Mm.
discussing these topics with family and trying to help people understand.
But otherwise, that Bollywood movie, just put that on and there you go.
So I guess on that note, like, do you think that like do you see any way? I know like I feel like very strongly that like I can't do anymore. Like already with Side Voices belonging, I feel like we are quite overwhelmed. No, overwhelmed is the wrong word, but it's just like I'm like at the max limit of like number of little projects I can have. But I do feel like there's a need for so many of these different things. Like, and I wonder if there are ways that it would be like easy to do them, you know? Like like just ideas and or like ways that we can incorporate some of these things. Like we do have a lot of educational content, but it's not necessarily in different languages. And like ways that we can incorporate some of these things in a more productive way? I don't know if you have any ideas, but that was just a
Well,
thought.
I recently came across some therapists who are LGBTQ, and one of them is actually from the Psy community. Rather, well, they were in the Psy community, and then they left the Psy community because they were essentially ostracized for being gay, which was really sad. And this was like way, way, way back in the day type of thing, and attitudes have changed and stuff. Um, but I think what's really what I from the content that I saw, they actually have conversation with their parents about how did you feel when I came out to you, and they actually have advice from their parents or grandparents about, well, this is what I thought and this is what I felt when you came out to me, and this is the point where I'm at now where I accept you because XYZ. Do you know what I mean? And I think because parents of queer people are not represented either, the parents don't have anywhere to turn to either for advice. And I think sometimes content like that could be really, really good. To say that, hey, my child is queer and this is how I felt about it. If your child is queer too, let me tell you, don't worry, because you just want your child to be happy, right? You want them to thrive, and the world has changed, and etc. 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 So I think getting some parent content would be good. I have combed, I have combed all of the all of the discourses that Swami has given, trying to find any content where Swami says it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, and I think the only one I found was, I want to say, was it 2007? I want to say 2007, and I think they took it out of the written discourse, but I think it was on the audio discourse where Swami said something like, uh, girls love girls, boys love boys, and I can't remember what he said after that, but do you recall it?
I remember this, and this is Anjali. This is what I was telling you like 2 years ago. I was like, there
Huh?
is a discourse where Swami talked about girls and girls and boys.
Uh-huh.
And I just could never find it because they took it out of everything, I guess. And I never
Have
heard
you,
it.
do you know where it is?
I think I can see it on my bookshelf at home. Like
Okay,
I
can you
think I
send it
do
to
have it.
us?
I'll send it. Yeah, I remember having, because I remember asking a Psy student about this as well. Like I asked one of the Psy students about this. Who's actually in America as well. I was like, I'm trying to find so much because all the YAs are asking me what Aswami said, what Aswami said, what Aswami said. I was like, I'm trying to find something, and so then I went to one of the sisters, and I was like, do you know of anything? And then she showed me this. She showed me it. I will find it for you and see if I can actually, like, I hope maybe it's on this phone, maybe it's not. But I will try and find it for you and see if um yeah, and send it to you guys. But I'm sure I've got it on my bookshelf at home. I'm pretty sure it was the 2007, because I remember being there, but I don't remember. I don't. I was clearly was not paying attention, which is bad. Um, but I'm sure it's there, and I think if you have a look online at the like audio discourse, you can't edit that. It's there, so I'll have a look and
Yeah,
send it.
Okay, thank you.
that would be crazy. We'll just blast that everywhere
Oh my
on our
God.
on our socials. Be like, here, Swami said it's okay to be gay, by the way. I mean, we know that. We know that. But for
We
some
know
people they need
that.
to hear it from the horse's mouth.
100%. Look, before anything, right? I don't know about you guys, but before I pursue anything, I always ask Swami's like guidance and permission or a sign or something like that, right? So before I started doing some work in women's football, I was like, Swami, this is a complete tangent from being a cardiology pharmacist, like, right? Give me a sign that it's okay. And like on two occasions, like Swami came into my dream and he was playing football, and I was like, Swami's using his robe as like a mechanism so that they can't get the ball. As that's family, that's cheating. Do you know what I mean? But like for me, that was my sign to say it's okay for me to venture a little bit into women's football and stuff, which has been so great. I love it so much. Just the people that you meet and stuff like that is incredible. Um, but yeah, we always ask that, and so far I've never heard anybody from the LGBTQ community say to me, Swami said no. So, and if you find love, then I'm sorry, but that's Swami. Like,
Mhm.
that's Swami, simple as. He would if you said it, if you think it was wrong, you wouldn't find love, but you do find love. It's okay.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that I mean, my experience with spirituality is a little not mainstream. Like as a person in Sai Center, like I don't really go to Swami for things. But that's not to say that I don't value what Swami says about stuff. It's more like, I have my own relationship with divinity and spirituality and stuff. And I think we talked about this actually, funnily enough, in the last podcast episode about like, you know, finding your faith in and reconciling that with your sexuality or your queerness. And I think this discourse would, I mean, it would have helped me when I was younger for sure. Like to see, I didn't, even then, I didn't really look to Swami as like the moral authority. I looked to my mom as a moral authority. Like,
Mm,
it's like Madhudeva, Baba Pitrudeva. Like my mom is the first, and then only after that is Swami. So at least that's how I grew up. And I think that even having this, like even having some documented, like some piece of evidence from your higher power, like is probably life changing. Like it can affect so many. I know so many people, okay, not so many people. I know a few people that have rejected their their journey into questioning their sexuality or gender just because Swami hasn't talked about it or Swami has said not to talk about it. Like I know a few people that have been like, I'm okay just being straight, like because it's not something that like I see Swami talking about. But obviously he's okay with it. I mean, he created us, so he has to be okay with people being gay and people being not cis. So, yeah, I think that this discourse would really help. And we can like if you can find it, that would be great. Or we can do our own searching
Yeah.
as well.
yeah.
And then we can blast it everywhere online. Be like, guys, look.
My challenge to anybody who says, "Tell me where Swami said it," is, tell me the part where Swami says, find me the discourse where Swami says you're supposed to use an electric toothbrush to brush your teeth, or show me the discourse where Swami says that you're meant to use toothpaste, or show me the do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there are some things which like are just accepted, right? You don't be like, did Swami say I'm meant to take the first step with my right foot or my left foot? Let me find the discourse that says that. There is, Swami also relies upon you to use your common sense and use your heart. He everything that Swami said to us was like a guide. Like, okay, say for example, yeah, Swami said that okay, we shouldn't eat meat, right? Swami said that we should be vegetarian. But Swami also said to Phyllis Crystal that she was allowed to eat fish for health purposes, right? The personal messages that Swami says to people personally are personal messages. The messages that that Swami gives to all of us in a discourse are very are broad concepts for us as people because how is he supposed to individualize every single thing that he says to us when we're all so vastly different? So therefore that generalization is there. That's why he gives, stories and concepts and things like that. It's not a hard and fast thing like brush your teeth every day, drink milk every day. Swami also said that we should eat less cheese. Actually, he said we shouldn't eat cheese, but then he also gave us cheese at the next meal. I mean, Swami, you said it in your discourse and you gave us cheese the next meal. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of things like that that also happen. Like, I still remember okay, this is something that my mom always says to me, why are you always going to football matches? Why are you doing all of this sports stuff? Blah 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 blah. I turned around and said to her, "Hey mom, do you remember the time when Swami took all of the young adults to a basketball game? Do you remember that? Do you want to say that to Swami now? Why are you taking these young adults to a basketball game? Come on, right?" So Swami does a lot of what he did out of love because he loves us, right? That's a lot. That's what it's about. And all of these, the discourses that he gives us, they are guidance. They help to guide us. So when we're in that place of turmoil and we need guidance, you can randomly open a book and Swami's guidance is like right there. Like, so if I was to tell you some of the weird things that have happened to me through like Swami's discourses and books and stuff like that, you guys would be like, okay, that is legit really, really weird. Because it is weird, but it's also very much Swami. And it's Swami's is very much Swami's. I'll give you like a really small example, right? Like, I had gone through probably the most traumatic thing emotionally in my life at a certain point. So I was reading, and I decided to go traveling. So I was traveling to, I think it was Malaysia. I was traveling to Malaysia, and I was on the flight and I was feeling really, really thirsty. And my dad, he works for British Airways, so I was supposed to get like a good seat, and I got economy. Oh, boohoo! Yeah. But, so I sat in this seat and I was just like, oh my god, I'm so thirsty. I really hope that they give water or something like that. And then all of a sudden, this the air steward, she comes up to me and she's like, is your name Nirali? And I said, yes. And she only hands me a bottle of water. Like, where I'm literally praying to Swami, being like, Swami, I'm really thirsty. Like, I feel like as if I might actually collapse if I don't have some water. And then somebody, they give the water. Another occasion, we were in Malaysia and we were driving down, and my friend Roshni, like, she blasts a Swami discourse. She does, I'm just gonna randomly pick a discourse. She randomly picked a discourse, and the first thing that comes out is God is your only friend, which at that point in time was the most applicable thing that I needed. I was like, whoa, that's so freaky. It was resounding as well. And you just knew that Swami's looking out for you. So for me, I'm just kind of like, I know Swami knows every single thing about me, right? Swami knows my good things. Swami knows my bad things. He is the one that I can be myself with. I can tell everything to. He's my refuge. Like, that's the way that I look at it, right? He's my refuge. If I can't be open and honest with Swami, like, then who am I supposed to be open and honest with? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll write everything down in my journal that I'm feeling and stuff. And like, if it's a problem that is meant to be resolved, once I've written it in that journal, it'll get resolved. Because that's my offering to Swami. Like, I'm giving you this problem, Swami. Like, I don't know what to do about it. I'm giving you this problem. And if it stays, it's because it's meant to stay, because I'm meant to learn something from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the understanding that I've sort of grown with over time. And like, for me, like, the Bhagwan that I resonate with the most is Shankar Bhagwan, to me, like, when I feel like as if I need a hug, when I feel like as if I need a refuge, when I feel like as if I need my best friend, I just imagine like hugging Shankar Bhagwan and like just being at his feet. And like, it's the most comforting thing ever to actually just have that, and just know that God accepts you no matter what. It doesn't matter who you are. He accepts you. He loves you as long as you are trying your best. If you are trying your best to be the best human being you can be, he loves you. Simple as. That's what I think. That's how my relationship with Swami is, and I know that Swami knows that I'm trying my best every day. That's the best that I can do.
Definitely. Um, yeah, thanks for sharing those stories. What advice do you have for people who are starting conversations about queerness and like kind of coming into these different spaces and starting these questions, both from like a queer point and an ally point?
I would say do your research in terms of in your center, like what is like who do you know who is queer or who is not queer, or what is the attitudes like? Like start having those like small droplet conversations. And then what I would say is you have to be able to come up with a plan with a little bit of evidence to suggest this is something worth pursuing, because without evidence, those who are in a position of leadership won't see it as relevant because they don't see queer people in the center. So you have to have some kind of evidence to suggest, and that might be conversations. You can say, I've had conversations with individuals, this is how they feel. Now, if we go back, and always link it back to the purpose of the center, always link it back to the purpose of the center, because if you don't, then they're like, that's just different. That's not nothing to do with the center. That's your own personal thing. So always link it back to the purpose of the center, the purpose of the organization. The next thing what I would probably say is have a conversation with other young adults and other YAs. Say, how do you feel about this? You may not be LGBTQ. You might just be an ally, and that's actually really really powerful to be an ally. And we probably don't talk about and allyship. I mean, I don't really like the word anyway, but allyship is probably the most vital thing that you can have, because you can you don't have to prove that you're straight or whatever, but if you can show your allyship and say, hey, look, if it's me as an individual who is not even part of the LGBTQ community can see value in this, can you tell me a reason why you can't? Right? And then once you getting the conversation started with the YAs and you've taken it to the center and said, hey, do you know what would be a really really good idea? What I want to do is first I want to do like a study circle or something with the YAs first, because you need to know how they feel about it. They're the future. Young adults are the future of the organization, so you need to know how they feel about it. You also need to you also need to open it up to them. Say, okay, if you wanted to change something in the center that made the center more LGBTQ friendly, what would that look like to you? Getting their opinions on board and making sure that they feel empowered to have those opinions is really really important, because a lot of the time I think YAs feel powerless and they have to like go along with things. But once they feel empowered and they feel like as if they have a responsibility to do something which has not happened yet, they are more likely to take that task and that role on board, especially if they can see that their other YAs are also on board with it and they can see it being something that will create change. The next thing that then needs to happen is a proposal that needs to go to the center or the region, or whatever level it is, and say, this is what we propose to do. What we want to do is have an interface between young adults and with our elders as well. We want it to be an open forum for people to ask questions about what they don't understand about LGBTQ. And again, you don't need to be LGBTQ. And the other thing is, we don't need to keep it within the center either. What you can do is you can request somebody that you know from the LGBTQ community who is not part of the center, but is still able to impart wisdom and able to give advice to those individuals who may suspect they may be from LGBTQ community, or they have children who they are. And it's good advice for parents to say, okay, we're going to hold a Q&A session with a member of the LGBTQ community. So if you are curious about it, and you want to ask a question, but you don't want to say who you are, drop a question in anonymously in the box, and then what we can do, we can ask those questions openly and you can attend the session. That's a safer way to do it as well when you've got questions. So you can even do it at the end of budgets, yeah? Call the LGBTQ like advocate if you like. And it can be for the whole center. And anybody can drop in a question, anonymous question. but it then doesn't single people out to be like, oh, we're holding a study circle after budgeons. If you are interested in this topic, please come along, because that also might make people feel like as if they're exposed. Whereas if you do it as a whole center, post budget and say, okay, we're going to have this talk about it, just so that we have more awareness and we can be more welcoming and more inclusive, then we've got somebody here who is not from the center, but they can answer your questions. Drop in your questions in the box. It's anonymous. And again, it's creating a safe environment, a safe space. And then you can do the next step, which is then having more in person stuff, and gain feedback from that session. Like that's what I would say.
Yeah, those are some really good ideas. I think that Anjali and I have implemented some of these, like the anonymous form submission and, just our content in general. But having it in the center and like accessible to everyone, because our stuff is all online and like social media based. So it's pretty much only accessible to people who have Instagram. But having it in the center would be like, I'm sure would be a great idea. And for those of you who are listening and feel so inclined to petition this to your centers, do that.
And let us know, we can help you.
Yes, and let us know. We will support you and help you. And, maybe I will do that in my center. I haven't really been to center in a while, but I might do that. And I think before we're gonna have to wrap up soon, but um for the second part of that question, like you spoke about how advice you have for people who are wanting to like have the desire to start these conversations and like affect change, or at least make it something that is spoken about generally. But what advice do you have for people who are on the receiving end of these conversations? So like for the people who a YA approaches them and asks them like, can we talk about LGBTQ community in our center? What advice do you have for that officer or for that parent or for that person?
Don't judge. Have an open mind and listen first. It's kind of like when you go to a doctor's office, right? You think you know what's wrong with you, and you're expecting the doctor to diagnose you with what's wrong with you, right? What the doctor has to do though is that they're not allowed to do that. What they have to do is that they have to have an open mind, and they have to gather all the information first. So my advice would be, whoever's listening to what the YAs are saying, listen, gather information first. Do not cast any judgment on what they are saying. Take away that information with you. Sit down with it. Think about, if Swami was standing in front of you, what do you think Swami would say to that information, right? That you've gathered, right? Then think about, what is the purpose of the center. Think about, how are you making that YA feel heard. And don't forget that YA is the future. The information that you have in your hand right there, and what you do with that information, will determine whether that young adult and their peers stay in the center or leave. And that is a powerful thing that you've got in your hands right now. So you have to sit with it, filter through it. What is true? What is not true? What can be done with it? How can we make it so it's empowering? How can we make it so it's loving and compassionate? That's what we need to do with it. We can't be dismissive. We can't be judgmental about it. You are not that young adult. You do not know what they are going through. Your job as an office bearer is to make sure that you have heard that YA and you have alleviated whatever they are feeling. That is your job as a coordinator. Your coordinator, to be a coordinator is not to serve yourself, it's to serve others. Never ever forget that. That is what I would say.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely agree that just like generally, like in all of the situations, in every situation, basically, if you just have an open mind, try to be loving, that'll get you very far. That is, yeah. So I definitely would and have appreciated that on the other side of these conversations from when these conversations happened in my life. So with that, I guess thank you so much, Nirali, for joining us on this podcast. We really appreciated having you here and sharing all your thoughts. Like you had a lot of good points, cool things to say, a lot of experience that you've had with bringing up these conversations, and we really appreciate everything you have to say.
No,
To
thank you
everyone,
guys for
yeah,
having me on the podcast. Like, I really appreciate it, and it's nice to be able to talk, to be able to talk openly about it. I think more conversations like these, like this, needs to be happen, whether it's between current coordinators or past coordinators. I think it's important to show that allyship is there, and I think it's important to show that um I think it's just important to show that as coordinators, like you, like you're for others. So yeah,
yeah. And yeah, thank you. And for everyone who's listening, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, our website. It'll be linked wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also join our WhatsApp group, which will help you stay updated on activities that we're planning, such as like Zoom meetups, which we discussed, where you can just like talk to other people, whether you're queer or an ally, or also like workshops we've had and different activities. So thank you so much, everyone. And I guess we'll see you next time.